peak performance marketing plan. And you are joined today by myself, Joe. And today we're going to introduce ourselves and also mention the first album that we ever bought. And for me, this is going way back and it's showing my age. This is Blink 182, and the album was Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. So that's me, and I'm head of conversion here at Launch. And I'll pass over to Danny.
I don't know that album. I don't know that album, Joe.
It's a new one.
I'm Danny, head of paid here at Launch. My first album is it sounds very cliche, but it is What's the Story, Morning Glory by Oasis, and
very topical.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got tickets to go see them. So yes, I'm one of the chosen few.
Hi everyone, I'm Becky. I'm the head of paid social at Launch, and my first album was Americana by The Offspring. So I was a bit of a skater girl, grunge girl when I was younger. So yeah, that's my
That
first.
is a good album.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, so yeah, again, thank you so much for joining. Today we are talking about peak performance, and as some of you may know and may already have tickets for, we actually have an event coming up in October, on the 10th of October at the Watershed in Bristol, called the CMO's Guide to Peak Performance. So this is a bit of a teaser and a bit of a intro to that topic. So today we're going to be talking all about peak performance and asking the question if it's all just about Q4, or if you should be thinking about making sure that you're acting in a way that's going to give you peak performance all year around. So our discussion today is going to sort of focus around 3 specific topics that will dig into this a bit deeper. And the first one of those is measurement. Then we're going to talk about experimentation, and then we're going to talk about creative in a bit more depth. So that first topic, measurements. It's been an interesting year for the world of measurement, with Google first saying they're going to phase out cookies, then saying they're not going to phase out cookies, and that sort of being a little bit in limbo. And the way that people are searching and engaging and converting online is obviously all changing too. So first question is, as a marketer, is it the right time to rethink what you're measuring and why? And I'll put that over to Danny.
Yeah, at the moment it is. I think it's coming up to peak. I think if you're going to do it, you need to do it fast. We have a saying here at Launch in terms of, bad data equals bad everything. I think that just stops everything that we're trying to do and trying to get right, and from a performance level, trying to make it work without the data, you're kind of running blind. Obviously, Google's changing policy and cookie policy over the last couple of years has been the interesting one, and trying to push more first party data. And then we're seeing lots of other approaches from analytics softwares or sort of third party software that we can plug into e-commerce brands and make sure that that's working, I think, to be able to then pull it back. So yes, so back to your question, Joe, yes, it is a time. I think the ones that are going to work the most are going to be the clients and the brands that actually invest in a proper measurement strategy as well, on how it works, what it does, all the way, the journey all the way through, and then trying to pass that back, whether that's offline, online. A more omni-channel approach is needed, and it's always been this. Those, I feel like we should have done keyword buzzword bingo all the way through, because I think I've said about 3 of them already. But yeah, that non-looking at a siloed performance metric, I think, looking at it as an omni-channel will work better. But again, it all goes back to, if the data is clean and good and you can trust it, that's going to be the hardest thing to do. And we definitely have had that. We've had issues with some clients over the last couple of months where new changes, new extensibility checkouts have come in with Shopify, and things have definitely dropped and caused concern. But yeah, it's getting it all back and getting it working again.
I suppose that's an interesting point around things going wrong, and that's a time of year when you're coming into peak when you definitely don't want things to be dropping or falling off. Have you noticed, or is there anything in terms of what metrics people are measuring, or the metrics say that matter more? ROAS is a classic metric. Is that something that you're seeing is still the most popular metric for for people to measure, or is that changing, do you think?
Yeah, it is. I think the way that you look at ROAS, I think that going back to my previous point on that kind of siloed approach of, okay, one particular channel works like this, and that is everything. It's that, okay, look at it from a ROAS or a revenue perspective, and I think a goal and a North Star perspective, like what is the goal for the end of the year or the end of the quarter now coming into Q4? How do we get there, and how do we make sure that the ROAS is where it is? Or if we need a revenue number, ROAS needs to be considered to be kind of disregarded. But don't, CPC is always one that I kind of always say to the team, we don't really want to be having those discussions, because we want to be having those bigger revenue number discussions. But CPC, we're seeing it increase again. It's always increasing, it's always going up. So every £1,000, every £10,000 you're spending, you are going to, what you were getting last year, you're probably getting less of now. But again, that's got to be built in to make sure that ROAS number and the factor of revenue and the targets that you're wanting to get is going to be achievable as well. But yeah, ROAS is definitely a metric that we do still talk about, and is still there, and it's still a key driving force. But I think there's got to be a bit of a relaxation on it. We could get into a brand versus non-brand argument on a ROAS level, and I know Tom's I know the team and the marketing team have put marketing collateral together, so I know there's a paper on brand v non-brand, which that ROAS argument's there. Yeah.
I will. Oh, sorry, Becky, please do.
No, I was just going to say, on the topic of measurement, and Joe, you saying, you don't want things to be breaking. This is the time of year, you need to be doing it now, is checking that all your data is correct, because there's no point in reporting your metrics if those metrics are wrong. So you want to be checking how your analytics is set up, check if you've got the CAPI set up, check you're not double counting events, are using the right UTM parameters. So all of that's important. Otherwise, the data you're reporting back is nonsense anyway. So that's another part of the measurement you need to be doing now, is doing that kind of data hygiene part. And we do a data hygiene project for clients. So make sure that's top notch, because you do not want to be testing that the week before Black Friday. You need to make sure it's working now, is my feedback on that.
Yeah,
100%. Otherwise, it's just going to give you a huge headache further down the line when things are more pressured. That topic of ROAS, I'm sure will come up again at our event in October. Where, by the way, I should mention, Google will also be joining, and they'll be talking all about measurement and data as well. So that's very exciting. And there will be a QR code link shared for everyone who wants to find out more about that. So that's a bit about measurement. I think we'll move on now to our second topic, which is experimentation. And this is obviously a topic that I am very, very passionate about, and I love talking about more, and actually we'll be talking a bit more about with Becky on stage at our events. So in a similar way to measurement, now is a really good time to be experimenting with what works and what doesn't work ahead of your peak periods, so that you can learn and take those learnings into peak periods. But I'll just talk briefly before handing over to Becky about what I think experimentation brings to a program and how it can help enhance your performance marketing in general. So experimentation as a methodology is something that I think a lot of people do a little bit of. They might play around with it using a certain amount of A/B testing, maybe in platform, but doing it in a structured way, which is research backed and has lots of data to back up your hypotheses, gives you a much better chance of having successful tests. And it also means that you can share those learnings with other departments across the whole customer journey. So things that we are doing more and more of here at Launch with clients is we will support our paid media, social and search performance marketing campaigns with a research program which speaks to the target audience, tries to understand what it is that they like, what they dislike, about the creative, but also about the landing pages where they're arriving, what makes them tick, their impressions, their motivations, and how they're responding to things, which gives us really valuable insight into what we could be changing, right? So there are some examples of this where we've done it with e-commerce clients, but also with B2B services clients, where those insights that we get are so valuable that we have changed. Sometimes it's just as little as the headline value proposition copy on the homepage, and that has increased the sort of number of lead gen conversions hugely. So the value of it goes beyond just website testing. You can have research which informs all of the creative you do too. But that's enough from my perspective. Maybe, Becky, if you've got some thoughts on how you found experimenting on paid social has helped you and your clients.
Yeah, a lot of the questions I get asked and at our events is, Becky, I don't know what creative to do. What's a good creative, and what's this? It's like, I don't know what a good creative is. It's what your customers think a good creative is. So what I react off might not be what your customers react off. So I work really closely with Joe's team, and we've done some really interesting tests recently for a lot of clients. And I'm just going to talk through one example of a test. So we did some user research, and there was a large proportion of customers that fed back on these social ads that we want to see the price on the image. So there we have it. There's a test straight away. We can do some A/B testing on price versus no price on an image. And it's about measuring the correct metric. So for this client, the key metric is ROAS and volume of purchases. So we did price on ad and no price on ad. Now the no price on ad got the highest click-through rate, but we're not measuring click-through rate, we're measuring purchases. The other ad, although it had a lower click-through rate, the ROAS was much stronger. So again, measure the right thing if you're going to do the A/B test. So we knew price one. The next phase of that, developing that, is, okay, so when they have sales, we know Black Friday is coming, what works better? So we asked ourselves, we think a percentage off is going to work better than a strike-through price. So then we have two new creatives, percentage off, strike-through price. Let's see what gets the better ROAS. And it was the percentage off that wins. Our next phase is, we think a percentage off is going to perform better than a percentage off and a strike-through price on the same image. And that's in process at the moment. So we're going to find out, is it better just to have the percentage off or the percentage off and a strike-through price? So you can see how we're developing this creative. And it's so much easier when you have feedback from clients, because otherwise it's really hard to know what to test first, because there's so many things you can test. And I think that's where people get a bit lost, because they don't know what to test first. So if you can start with what customers are feeding back to you, it helps give you a place where to start with, essentially. So that's what we're doing at the moment, and it's providing invaluable insights for Black Friday. So Black Friday will know whether to do a strike-through price or a percentage off. We're doing other tests, like what models to use. Do they prefer the pictures in the studio? Do they prefer it when the lifestyle shots of outside? Like, what do they like? And all this is coming back from the research that Joe's team has done to help guide us in a testing plan. Otherwise, I think it's really hard to know what to do or where to start with, essentially.
Yeah, it's almost pathfinding, isn't it? Because if there's a million things you could change or test, which one do you do first? Yeah. So that process of prioritizing which one we think is going to have the greatest impact in the shortest amount of time. So that is that's a kind of process that we have come up with, which is really try to be as objective as possible with scoring ideas, scoring hypotheses, so that we can arrange them in a way that gives us that value. But yeah, I'm really excited by all of the fun research we've been doing recently. We've just talked yesterday with a client about doing some focus groups, face-to-face customer research as well, which should give us even more ideas for cool stuff to do in future. So yeah, lots more of that, I think. From your side, Danny, is there anything from an experimentation perspective in Google Ads that you wanted to contribute, chuck in?
Yeah, so it's the same stuff, I think. So you've got obviously all the visual element of Meta and the social side of it, and Pinterest, and the same on display and programmatic, and making sure that that visual element is done and tested. And again, Becky's right, on about the right metrics and whether it's done that way. I think from an e-com retail perspective, I think start looking at the feed, start looking at, again, product images. Is it better to look at one way of an image, or with a coloured background, a white background, a lifestyle shot compared to just a sort of your flat laid product shot? You've got those tested. Then you start going a bit deeper into, okay, from a feed perspective, you've got titles, attributes, things that can aid performance and give a bit of an uplift in, again, whether we're looking at ROAS, revenue conversions, or click-through rate, depending on what we're trying to achieve, what works better. And then you've also, I think the other side of the paid media side is structure. Testing with, we've seen examples, and it's kind of led our, as an agency's, idea of PMAX and the structure in terms of asset groups down. Is it better to strip it out and be really granular with a structure, or does revenue drive more? Because revenue was the main key feature we were looking at for this particular clothing client. Was revenue the right one when we grouped them together and started running high v low and medium and sort of zombie, no click or impression campaigns around particular products? What drives a bit of better revenue? And yeah, we can definitely see those as well coming through from an e-commerce and a Google and Microsoft ad side.
And it's not always a test that you think is going to win that will win. Often we'll be wrong thinking about which one we predict will win. It won't always be the case. And also the kinds of insights you sometimes get back from research are sometimes completely unexpected, things that you wouldn't have been able to think of yourself, because, like you said, Becky, we're not the customer. We can't be inside their heads all the time. So it's always so fascinating to see what those kinds of projects come back with, and the kinds of test ideas that we just wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So very interesting.
I think that, just to jump in there, Joe, I think the one recently that we did where the questioned around the creative of the image, of whether it was AI generated as well. I think that was it led on to bigger ideas and projects off the back of that. But it gave, those images weren't AI generated, but focus groups kind of said that they thought they were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we've had similarly with another research project where the most of the feedback we got was that they just didn't think there was enough detail in the listings, and so from our perspective, we thought we were providing loads of detail in all of our ads, but we weren't. And then trying out a far more detailed approach got better results. But it's all about, it's all about that kind of context and understanding of where people are coming from and what they need. It can be somewhat intimidating to think about, okay, well, if we want to start experimenting and doing it kind of in a rigorous, proper way, where do you get started? Because there are lots of things to think about in terms of making sure that you have proper A/B tests set up, making sure that you're reaching statistical significance and all of that stuff, and making sure you're doing it in a way which is going to give you reliable results, because you're kind of essentially it's allowing you to make proper decisions about what to do. So we can help with that. There are lots of materials that we published already. There's a blog that we've written on customer research, which is available on the website, 4 ways to understand the customer better through experimentation, that Amy Hind and the conversion team wrote, and that's a really good place to start. So if you're thinking about that, definitely check that out. So now we've talked a bit about measurement, we've talked a bit about experimentation and customer insight and behavior analysis, which brings us to our third topic, which is around creative. So, and why creative is also really important, and making sure that you get that right as another key ingredient to have year-round peak performance. So for this one, I thought I would start off with Becky, but feel free to jump in, Danny, as well at some point, around why creative is so important and how clients can make sure that they have the right one. And there might be some overlap with this in experimentation, I expect, but yeah.
Yeah, so creative, if we think about the social platforms, particularly Meta for this one, when you're advertising, it's not the amount you bid that wins. Meta will look at lots of factors, but the main one is your creative. Basically, the best creative wins. So if one of your competitors has a slightly better creative, they might win the auction over you. But what makes that better creative? And it feeds back to all this kind of experiment and research that you're doing. Now, with creative a few years ago, you could get away with maybe doing a box standard creative, but companies have access now to lots of AI resources. You've got tools like Canva. So companies who don't have maybe a huge design department can actually create some really fun and cool creatives and really stand out there. So you've really got to start looking at creative and think about why you are creating that particular ad. Like, why have you created it in that way, which again feeds back to the experiments. And I'd also say don't be too strict with your content. So don't let your brand guidelines kind of overtake everything. So for example, I'm doing a test for a client at the moment, which is, there are 2 reels. One is quite production heavy, so very clean, very on brand. The other one is a reel one of their execs created at home, quite rough and ready. And the stats are incredible. And at the moment, that rough and more ready organic content is winning by absolute miles. And it's really interesting. So think outside the box a little bit, but you need to be testing now. There's no point in doing this in peak and Black Friday. It's really is too late. So there's loads of blogs out there. There's lots of content creators that post ideas for your creative as well. Like, there's really is no excuse not to be testing with your creative, because there's so many tools and resources out there to help you kind of test different things and have different ideas. So it's really is important. There's no point in spending thousands and thousands of ads if you haven't tested your creative and you're not understanding what the client wants to see. Simple things like go through your testimonials from like Trustpilot or on your site. Are there particular words your clients are using a lot? If there is, like, put that into your ad, even your ad copy. Like, listen to your customers. If you don't have the budget to do proper, customer research, you can do it yourself. Like, go through that kind of customer research, mining testimonials. Listen to your customers. Can you incorporate any of that language into your ads? Are they saying, I love this dress has pockets? We've done that one of our clients' ads. Like, there's this dress and it's got pockets. And like, they were absolutely loving the pockets. So we've got on the ad, I've got pockets. And that is doing amazingly well. So again, don't try and overthink it or overcomplicate it. There's lots you can do, and there's lots of resources out there for you. So yeah.
I'd add to that as well, like what you've just said then about it being a bit rough and ready, and that you sort of user create that, self-created video, not the polished and shiny Apple TV advert that they're going to do for their new iPhone. It's like the rough and ready stuff does work, has got a place in it. And I think, even when you think about awareness and that side of it, I know it's kind of off topic, Joe, but it just, what Becky said then just got me thinking about that awareness piece of creating videos always been sort of the one thing that is like, oh, it's a high spend ticket item that I've got to go and get somebody to go and create video, and it needs loads of time and management on, and it can be as straightforward as just a quick video shot on an iPhone that then gets created into a video, and using some of the software tools that Becky's mentioned, then being able to just lump it together and make it work. It can work. And again, just test it, put it out there, see what comes back, see whether it, as long as it's on brand and you've got sign off, it's not like wasted budget. I'd say. I think if anything, it's going to elevate, I think, a brand and sort of increase that brand awareness.
Danny, use the word elevate. No.
Got it in. Bingo, done.
We've got this thing at launch where Meta and particularly ChatGPT loves the word elevate, so we can always spot in ads if they've used the word elevate.
Thought I just need.
You just never know where that insight or that nugget of information is going to come from. Becky, I think reviews is such a good place for it. Any kind of customer listening, so research as well. Like, for example, Danny, you mentioned earlier, we can't talk about the nature of the campaign, but a really big campaign which is coming from one of our clients came from an interview with a customer that we did, and they said something that was really interesting and that was completely out of the blue and that we would never have thought of ourselves. And then we thought, hey, there's an idea, and that's now flourished into a creative campaign. So often your customers are the source of that kind of inspiration. And so the sort of listening piece is really important, I think, there as well. Now, we are quickly running out of time. So I'm going to ask one last question, which is just to put you on the spot. If there's one thing that you could say to people now in terms of getting ready for peak, but also I suppose getting people in the mindset of always being ready for peak and trying to be at the top of their game. Is there one thing from this discussion that you would say is the most important, or is it a bit of everything?
I'd say PEPS framework. That it doesn't stand for politically exposed person. That's completely something else. PEPS framework. So it's plan, experiment, push, and sustain.
Love
so
that.
Plan, experiment, then push what works, and then try and sustain that through Black Friday. So I can create a little blog on that actually, and yeah, we can link to that. But PEPS, not politically exposed person.
No, got it. That's great. I really enjoyed that. Danny?
Yeah, I'd back everything Becky just said then. But yeah, from an e-commerce perspective, I think it's just, I think it goes back to data and just that hygiene and checking and making sure everything is ready and clean and is prepared. And if we talk purely around peak and Black Friday and Christmas, is what offers. What are you running off? Are you not? What is the plan? What's the execution? Are we? I think it's having that strategy in place of, okay, ROAS we're going to take a hit on ROAS because we're not going to invest in a Black Friday. We're not going to do a discount. We're going to reduce ad spend, or are we going to invest in it heavily and go for it and drive revenue? And again, it's do the other bit that's probably another blog and another LinkedIn Live is like, do the customers that you achieve in November, are they the right type of customers that you should be achieving? Like attracting and keeping? Do they stay? What's their LTV? Are they staying long enough, or should we be investing in another time of the year? And I think that's a completely another conversation to be had. But it's coming to peak, I'd just say check your data, check your feeds, make sure everything's working and ticking across, and you've got everything and anything ready to go. I think is be prepared, plan.
Good advice. And if I was to just say one thing, it probably would be listen to your customer. And there are an infinite source of insight, but also feedback, which can allow for really cool thinking and innovative ideas, creativity. You can kind of you can be creative as long as you keep your ears open. So you just got to listen to that information. And I think that will probably do it for us. So just to say thank you so much, Becky, Danny, for joining today. Thanks for watching. If you're watching live or if you're watching this back in future, thank you. One last plug for our event in October on the 10th. We should have a QR code coming soon, and also there is loads of resources on our website. We've got white papers, we've got blogs. We've mentioned a few, and I think those that we've mentioned we'll try and post in the comments as well, so you can access those. So and also if you're interested to find out any more than that, just drop us a line, get in touch. And I think that's it from us. So thanks everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.